get a nice stretch. I'll get this off to the side. Nice big reach. Probably feet apart. That's a pretty solid stance in order to get those big stretches. We need to get the shoulders loosened up and bring the arm forward and up and down. Pretty slowly with big moves with the arms, especially early in the day. So one more, all the way up. You want the arm as straight as possible, straight at the elbow, really good reach. And how about just a step and a touch, just to start to loosen up the hips and legs. Making our own noise and music here. So, just a little roll. Just a little roll on the feet, a little bit of a chug with the arms. Not having to lift the feet very much. Matter of fact, you don't have to lift them at all. You can just roll on the ball of the foot, or you can get the feet picking up a little bit, which is going to give a little more activity. Just gets us warmed up. And loosen those legs, get a pretty good knee lift here. Little motion with the arms. A little bit more quickly. Imagine what this would be like if we had taps on the shoes. Okay, let's slow it down. That just gets us moving a little bit. Bring that arm in across, up and around. Same thing opposite. So just a nice big reach. Once more with the arm coming forward and up. So, straight elbow, get that arm as straight upward as possible, and then really reach. Relax the arm, bring it down slowly. Same thing, opposite arm. Really reaching up. Relaxing it a little bit. And bringing it slowly downward. We need to get started with a little work for the muscles across the chest. Just loosen those arms a bit. So, if you have the band with you, I'm going to get that band around the back. Keeping in mind that you do not have to have any equipment to do any of these. But if you have a band, that's great. Just going to bring the arms forward, maybe kind of cross right at the wrists. So it's that move, bringing the arm from out at the side, forward and in toward the center. It just, working with the band, you don't have to have a lot of resistance there. What you want to do is try to keep the arms pretty much even in terms of the amount that they're raised. But you want those arms to come in toward the center, probably just crossing the wrists. And you want to make sure the band comes through under your arms. And the reason for that is, with these flat bands, it probably wouldn't make as much difference. We're going to give those shoulders just a little bit of rest. With the flat band, it's not going to make as much difference. If it's a round band, then they have a tendency, if you get them above the arm, to kind of roll up over the shoulder and catch you right in the side of the neck, which is not fun. So, flat bands in that case, give you a bit of an advantage. And again, get those arms up, get them coming in across. Just a little bit of work for those muscles in the chest. And again, you do not need a band to do this because the move is going to be the same. So if you put the band down, you can see that you're going to be doing the same thing. Those arms are going to come in, they're going to go out. They're going to come in. So with or without the band, you have the same motion and working the muscles across the chest. It's when that arm comes inward. So if you put your flat hand across right at the notch of the collarbone or thumb and finger, just work with that one arm. Bring it in, take it out. You can feel the muscle work. Obviously, you can feel the movement at the shoulder joint as well. But that's how you know those muscles are working. Opposite side, just to even it up. To get at those same muscles, you could also just get the hands together. Double the fists up, get the inner side of the hand together. Press forward, take the elbows outward, so then you're going to kind of roll to the knuckles. Press forward, elbows outward. It's a chest press. In a gym setting, you'd probably do this lying on your back on one of the benches, and very possibly with significant weight in the hand. But there again, the motion is the same. So it's the fact that those upper arms are coming in closer to the center, and that's what's engaging those muscles across the chest. In between times, you know, we want a little cardio work. Pretty easy. We're just raising the heels a little bit, alternating feet. The move with the arms does a couple different things. It kind of loosens the shoulders, relaxes them a little bit, gets some good circulation pumping through, and gives us our bit of cardio work. Okay, for the back. A lot of things we can do for the back. Working with the band is one of the nicest because it gives us an opportunity to feel those muscles, and it's going to be the ones across the upper back that you'll notice the most. So we get a comfortable grip on the band, straight elbows. If it's a little easy to get those arms out at the side, you shorten the band just a little bit. Bring your hands just a little bit closer. If it starts getting a little tough, take the hands out a little bit. We want straight elbows, arms ending position, straight out at the side. Keeping at least a little bit of tension as you come in toward the center, because if you release it all, then those muscles just have a chance to go kind of slack. And so by maintaining at least that little bit of tension, just keeping the band straight, when you bring the hands in, it keeps the muscles engaged. It keeps them in a working mode, even though they aren't having to do much when you just have the arms forward. Now, this gets a little tough because you have the arms elevated, because the elbows are held straight, and because those muscles across the upper back begin to fatigue a little bit. A lot of it, I think, due to the fact that the arms are raised. So we stay with that one. If you begin to feel that those muscles are getting really tired out, bring the arms down just briefly. Just kind of shake the shoulders up. A lot of the fatigue that comes from that one is because of the position of the arms. and because you have tension on those muscles throughout. So don't ever feel badly, or don't feel that you're losing out on anything if you notice the fatigue and you have to give those muscles a little bit of a rest. What they're going to do is basically say, thank you, I needed that, and then they're going to feel a little bit better. And again, that little bit of a shake with the arms and shoulders will be helpful on that. If we just get rid of the band briefly, gives us a chance to be more aware of those muscles that are truly at work on this. And it's the entire back, it's the entire core that works on something like that. But a lot of it is muscles across the upper back. So if you start with the arms forward, take them out to the side, feel what's happening at the very upper portion of the back, between one shoulder and the other, down as far as the shoulder blades, and bring the arms in. So again, you still have the arms raised, so there's still going to be that element of fatigue at the shoulders. In the meantime, you want to hold the core muscles, all those stabilizing muscles. You want to stand very secure, held in place very well. And again, because we don't have the resistance of the band, you can be very aware of what's happening with those muscles at the upper portion of the back. And let's just bring the arms down the shoulder, kind of slowly shake the shoulders out. Maybe just a shoulder roll. It pays to pay attention to how the muscles feel. We're always looking to, we're looking to do several things. First thing we're looking to do is maintain whatever we have. Next thing is maybe to attain just a little bit more, but not at a cost that is unreasonable. So maintaining, keeping at the same level of whatever particular thing it is, that's a good thing. You know, building a little bit on it, that's probably even a little bit better thing. But the main thing is that we want to be able to continue to do what we're doing with as much ease and comfort as possible, so that when we have to change that light bulb in the closet, I keep going back to my closet light bulb because that's the one that always manages to burn out at just the wrong time. So you want to be able to get that on up, get the hand rotating. You know, it's just a matter of general fitness. So that's kind of what we're looking for here. Okay, we've worked a little bit on the chest and back. We've got a little bit of cardio in. Maybe what we'll do is just loosen up those shoulders because they're next in line. Just a little raise off the heels. Keeping in mind that that raise off the heels does a couple different things. One is it makes us more aware of balance and centering. Of course, it makes us talk funny too, but that's all right. So that gives us a little cardio, and we need to work on the shoulders. If you have weights, this is the time to use them. You can do a shrug with or without weight. The only difference it makes is how much effort you have to put into that lift. But what you really want to do is stay very straight. Shoulders are not tilting. One shoulder is lifting while the other one remains in place. But you're not tilting side to side. So there's no real move in the midsection. You want the arm to be very relaxed. It's straight. It's just a lift and a lower. Pretty controlled. You want to try to keep your neck relaxed. That not the easiest thing to do when you're doing a shrub. So try to keep the neck relaxed, try to keep the neck straight. Just a nice lift. Try to be really aware of whether you're altering the position of the trunk of the torso or core. You can do a shrug and kind of tilt a little bit to the side, or you can do it with no tilt to the side. That's the one we're looking for. It's not that tilting one way or the other is going to do any harm. It just doesn't necessarily do all that much more good either, because what you're looking for on this is shoulder strength, but also the mobility, maintaining the range of motion, and that slow, gentle lift is what's going to do it for you. And again, you know, if there's any sideward tilt, not going to do any harm. I mean, you're going to do this a little bit, no big deal, but maintaining the straight posture, in addition to allowing you to concentrate on the shoulder work, is also going to help a little bit with just that little bit of extra stabilization in the torso. So it's a trade-off. So many things are, but in order to really get the very most benefit for the shoulders, we're just trying to limit any sideways tilt. We'll just let those weights hang, get the feet apart. Arms are going to move just a little bit, not an arm swing, just you know, a little bit of motion because of the fact that you're shifting weight from one foot to the other. And keep in mind, when we're working with masks, we need to be very relaxed in our breathing, and that's not easy to do because there's an obstruction there. So we want to be sure that we keep a good, regular breathing pattern. Sometimes if we begin to fatigue, and there's a similarity in this between our breathing and our walking, for instance. You can fall into a pattern, with breathing in particular. If you begin to tire a little bit, I'm going to get a little more movement with the arms here. If you begin to tire a little bit, the pretty much normal reaction is to begin to breathe a little more quickly, but not as deeply. So the way you break that pattern is to be aware of it. And if you notice that that's happening, we're just going to set these down for a minute. If you notice that that's happening, you just stop yourself briefly and think, okay, you know, no more panting like Fido. So you take a nice deep breath and release it. If you do that a couple times, it will break that almost panic breathing. It will get you breathing more deeply, more slowly. It's very similar when you're walking. We're just going to get a few steps here with a step and touch forward. A little bit of an arm swing. So if you're walking for a longer period of time and for a fair distance, again, it's a lot of it is awareness. Very possible that your step will fall into a pattern where you're taking the same length step, same amount of time between each step, and because of that repetition, you're going to find at some point that the legs and hips, particularly the hips, are going to notice that. So what you do on that one in order to break that cycle is take a few longer steps. Actually, you can do that even standing in place. Just a step forward. Doesn't have to be super long. Just has to be a little bit different from what you've been doing. So just a little step forward. If we took this out longer, it would be a forward lunge. We don't have to do that. A forward lunge involves bending that knee and really stepping out. This alters it enough to give the legs and hips a little rest. And at this point, we need to do some work for the biceps. Again, we do not need weights. If you have them, that's great. But the fact that we have the elbows bent and we have the hands right here, the bicep has gone to work. All the bicep needs is to be in a bent elbow position, and that has put it to work. Now, if we have the weights, that's great. The difference being, we're going to shift the weight out onto the one side and work just with that arm. The difference in this being that when you have a weight or any other resistance, that muscle is going to have to work a little harder. Now, by stepping out this way, we've complicated the stance. We've shifted the weight primarily onto one foot, which means we've involved the hips and legs. We've involved a little bit more in terms of balance. And what we're doing while we're working the bicep is fatiguing the leg and hip on that side. Because the leg and hip, particularly hip, back, very lower back, is going to fatigue more quickly than the arm will. It's because the arm is moving and the leg and hip aren't. So we're going to switch over. So now we've altered our stance. We've changed our balance point or our centering point. Bicep in this arm is doing the same thing it was in the other arm. And you know that, as I said, weights, great, but you don't need them. All you need to do is be bending and straightening that arm. You can work that with a couple soup cans, a couple water bottles, anything at all. Actually, a water bottle filled with sand or little pebbles, that would give you a great hand weight. But again, with no weight or resistance at all, the action of the muscle is going to be exactly the same. The weight load, the work load is going to be different. But so far as the way the muscle works, it works in exactly the same way. Maybe just a couple more with that arm. Just keep the arms at the sides. Weights are just kind of resting gently in your hands. Arms can move forward and backward a little bit. Not a deliberate arm swing, but the fact is when you're shifting the weight from one foot to the other, even in this very modest way, it creates a little bit of motion with the arms if you relax the arms to follow that. So everything just kind of works together. We need some work for the triceps. Long muscle, back of the upper arm. They are at work because the elbows are straight. So we set the weights down. We'll just bring one arm up, palm up. Bend the elbow, that's the bicep. Straighten the elbow, that's the tricep. Pretty easy. One more with palm up. And then 4 of them with thumb up, palm toward the center. And then 4 with palm down. And bring that arm down. All we've done on that, and that one, certainly no weight necessary. What we've done by changing the hand position is to roll that muscle a little bit, side to side. So, if we work with the other arm, and we're working palm up, that muscle is going to be in a particular configuration or position. If we go to thumb up, we've rolled that muscle just a little bit. Does it make a whole lot of difference? Not a whole lot. It makes a little difference. Palm down. Same thing. Because the tricep is the muscle that straightens the elbow, we don't need weight in our hand to do that. Sometimes, you could work with a small ball of some type. What that would do would be to add a little work for the hand. But in the meantime, we're just going to work now with palm up. Just take the opposite hand, bring it up so the fingers are just in a little bit from the elbow joint, and straighten that elbow. And bend it, and straighten. And feel with those fingertips the fact that that muscle pulls in, tightens up. It's working. Do the same with the other arm. So those fingers are in just a little bit from the elbow joint. As the elbow straightens, you can feel that muscle tighten. And the feeling on that, we're just going to get the arms chugging a little bit, just a little roll on the balls of feet. You can feel that muscle tighten, so you know it's working. It would be working the same way even if you didn't check up on it. But it's kind of nice to know, so just that idea of feeling that muscle tightens so strongly. And in this case, the tricep is still engaged. It's just not having to do anything. So without the movement in the arms, that muscle is one of the ones that is still in a working mode. It's just not doing anything. It's just not moving. We need to get a little work for the legs. We'll loosen them up a little bit. And then we're going to sit down, just because I know that everybody loves bicycling. If you're moving the weights from the chair to the floor, be sure you put them somewhere where they're not going to be in your way. You're not going to step on them. And be sure that you bend the knees when you are putting something down or picking something up. So we could probably start with some bicycling. We'll start with 4 each leg. And then we'll get 4 each leg with the opposite arm. And opposite arm. And then we'll get 4 each leg with both arms. Both arms. And then we'll take a half a second to bring ourselves back to our position on our chair, because if it's a metal chair, chances are you slide a little bit. So, we'll just make sure. Anything that we do when we're seated on the chair, we're just going to get those legs moving just a little bit, just nice and easy. Anything that you're doing sitting down that's going to involve motion with the legs, or even not having the legs involved all that much. But you want to be close to the front of the chair. Reason for that, in terms of leg movement, closer to the front of the chair, you have more freedom of movement with the legs. The other advantage, or disadvantage, take your choice, is that closer to the front of the chair, just sit still for a minute, closer to the front of the chair, we have to self-support with the muscles in the core. So, if you're sitting back in the chair and can rest your back against the chair back, it's going to be a more relaxed seated posture. If you're pretty far forward, it's not going to be a relaxed seated posture. You're going to pull up nice and straight. So, a little bit more deliberate move with the legs. Just to reach forward, touching down on the heel. And then up, knee up, knee up. Keep the foot relaxed. It's actually going to be kind of flat looking. Just a lift. So here's where that whole core strength comes in. Once one foot leaves the floor and the knee starts to lift, there's going to be a tendency to rock a little bit, one hip to the other. So if we resist that tendency and we try to stay very straight and solid, hip to shoulder, what we've done is compounded the workload, because now we not only have that knee lifting, but we're resisting the fact that it would want to kind of tilt us one way or the other. And if we're holding tight, hip to shoulder, we're getting some good core work. So, not a complicated move, but a very good one. And again, just those couple seconds to slide ourselves back to the front of the chair. If you take the feet forward, take them apart, not super wide, but a reasonable amount. You're resting on the heels, the feet are relaxed, and you're going to slide the hands down, probably just about to the point where the heel of the hand rolls down over the round portion of the knee. This is a nice stretch, nice and easy. Keep the neck straight, don't drop your head forward. This is a nice, gentle stretch for over the back of the hip. Feels pretty good. And then come on up to sitting. Just relax those feet and legs a little bit with a little bit of a toe point, toe pull back up. So even something as basic as this, if we kept it up for an extended period of time, would begin to fatigue the muscles. In this case, it would be the lower portion of the back of the leg. Eventually, it would kind of travel and the whole leg would get a little bit tired, and then it would move on to the back of the hip and lower back. So for right now, it's essentially catching the muscles in the lower portion of the leg. It's maintaining some flexibility at the ankle. Maybe a little bit for foot strength, although not a whole lot. But just keeps us moving a little bit. And then if we bring those feet in, this one's going to slide you back on the chair if you're on a metal chair. Just a little lift and drop. Okay, so that double knee lift, and also trying to hold ourselves nice and upright. It's a good little bit of work for the cardiovascular system. We're going to need to get some work for the chest. Actually, we can be pretty relaxed on this, just kind of slide the feet forward. If you press the knuckles together and just hold. A little more pressure. This is an isometric move, which means it's not moving. Isometric being the term for a force, basically a force that neither hand is going to overcome. unless you relax one shoulder, those hands aren't going to move. So that's the isometric part. The isotonic part is movement. So if you turn the hands, palms in, take the hands forward. This is similar to that chest press that we did earlier. Knuckles together, they're not going to go anywhere. Neither hand is going to move. However, the muscles across the chest are involved, and obviously so is the shoulder. You can feel it there. If we turn the hands, take the hands forward. See what happened with the upper portion of the arm. It drew in closer to the center line. So, just a little adaptation on a chest press. Moves forward. Knuckles together, that's the isometric, nothing's moving. The fact that it's not moving doesn't mean there aren't muscles working, because there are. The moving part actually comes as a relief on that. So we'll bring the arms down. Just a gentle raise, forward, inward toward the center. The raise itself, a little bit of work there on the shoulder, but also muscles across the chest, one side or the other, depending on which arm is moving. The fact that the arm is coming in more to the center line. So it may not be a big amount that it has traveled, other than the raise itself. I mean, it's only come from at the side of your hip to the center line of the body. But in order to do that, you've had to engage the muscles in the chest. So you want just that little bit of inward motion. Now, even if it's only straight forward, it's still going to get that same muscle involved. But the little bit of inward motion is what emphasizes it. And there again, if you want to be sure that muscle is working, just get either the flat hand or the thumb and the finger. Bring that arm up. Bring it in across a little bit. You feel the movement of the collarbone, you feel the movement of the shoulder, but you also feel the fact that that muscle is tightening in order to bring that arm forward and up. It's a good little bit of work for the chest. Let's see, for our cardio here, what if we get the feet moving and the arms lifting? So arms are straight, so remember the tricep is at work because the elbows are straight. The shoulder is working, shoulders. Get a flying step. This one, perfectly fine to tilt side to side. Get that whole core involved. We need some work for the back. What if we get the knees together, lower portion of the legs straight up and down, keep the arms at your sides, neck straight, fold forward at the hip. Not bending, not rounding over, just folding forward until you reach a point where you realize that you're not going to get your head down any lower unless you bend something. So we're not bending, we're keeping the back straight. And then we're coming up to sitting, nice and relaxed. We're turning the shoulders outward. So we're pulling the shoulder blades in toward each other. And then we're coming back to a normal position. We're going to do the same thing. Arms at the sides. Tilting forward, but not rounding over, not bending, keeping the neck straight, keeping the back straight. You fold forward the amount that you feel, is comfortable and reaching a point where you know if you try to fold in anymore, you're going to have to bend somewhere, and then coming up to sitting. Shoulders are relaxed. Turn those shoulders back. Pulls the shoulder blades in toward each other. That's all different portions of the back that we're working on. Relax the arms. Roll the shoulders inward. When you roll them inward, you're going to flatten the lumbar curve. So you're really going to roll those shoulders inward. You're going to keep your neck relaxed. And back to a normal resting position. So again, roll those shoulders in. It flattens the lower back. When you come back to a normal position, it allows that lumbar curve to set back in place. And when you take the shoulders back, just gives a nice little bit of work for along both sides of the rib cage, both sides of the spine. And again, relax them. So we will stand up. Just be sure when you're working, especially if you're working with the mask, that you take time out for a little bit of water whenever you need to. We're just going to do that side lateral pull again, just a little bit more work for the back. So straight elbows, arms moving straight out at the side. At least a little bit of tension as you bring the hands in, so you don't bring them in so far that the band just goes whoop. Because when the band does that, all those muscles at the upper back do the same thing. So we want to keep at least a little bit of tension. If it begins to feel easy, you just quick slide the hands in a little bit closer as you're ready to start that move. If it begins to feel a little bit tough, you let the hands slide outward. But you keep the arms elevated. You don't let those arms relax. You keep the elbows straight. Keep the tension on those muscles. And that does a really nice job for the upper portion of the back. And again, with or without a band. Without the band, the move is exactly the same. It's straight elbows and the arms go out to the side. If you just do that, straight arms out to the side, feel what's happening with the muscles in the upper back. They're not moving, but you can tell that they're working. You can feel that they have contracted, they have pulled in order to get your arms back to that position. And holding that position without any movement in the arms, it's not going to take too long before you notice some fatigue at the shoulder, and you'll be very happy to bring those arms down. And if you bring them down slowly, that adds just a little bit, that slow descent, slow on the negative. Just roll the shoulders, just to give them a little bit of a rest. So, we've got a little work for the chest, we've got a little work for the back, which brings us then to the shoulders. I really can't say enough in favor of shoulder rolls. You want to keep the arm very relaxed, get as much movement as you can, keep your neck relaxed, keep the arm relaxed, just get a nice big roll around. Feels good, does a great job of relaxing the shoulder, does a really good job of maintaining a good range of motion as much as possible. And again, if you try to hold very stable hip to shoulder so that you don't have any wag with the upper body, you're going to concentrate that work at the shoulder, and the fact that the core, the torso is not moving, is actually a means of strengthening those muscles as well. So for the shoulder, we're getting range of motion, flexibility. For the torso, We're strengthening those muscles by holding very firmly, holding very tight. We'll get a little cardio here. To get some cardio benefit, keep in mind you don't have to beat the daylights out of yourself. Just need to have a pretty fair amount of motion going. Actually, this is a little bit like a little kid deciding, no, I won't do whatever it is that you just asked me to do. And I'm gonna stomp my feet and I'm gonna swing my arms and I'm gonna look pretty tough. Okay, just a nice big reach with one arm then the other. So that's done a pretty nice job on the shoulders. Just shrug them up. Try to keep the arms relaxed. And let them settle back down nice and easy. Always good to try to keep the shoulders as square as possible. Can be really helpful to just grasp one hand with the other at low back and just press downward a little bit with those hands. So that works pretty well. We need some work for the biceps and triceps, and we're going to do both sitting on the chair. Bend the knees when you go down to get those weights. So, one hand is not going to be doing anything right now. It's just going to hold on to that weight and let it rest gently on the knee. No, on the thigh, just into the knee. Other arm is going to drop. Now, the challenge on this is not to get a side tilt here. We want to keep those shoulders flat across, the back flat across. The elbow is in against the inner side of the thigh, and you're just going to curl that weight up and take it down. Try to keep your wrist nice and straight. Just kind of nice and easy. So again, the challenge is to keep the shoulders flat across. Keeping the neck straight and relaxed. Just one more with that hand. And then coming up to sitting. So now we're going to switch over. So again, the challenge on this is to keep the shoulders flat across, because when this arm is in the position that it is, and you have weight and work with the other arm, there will be a tendency to tilt one way or the other. You're either going to want to push off with a hand that isn't doing anything, or you're going to kind of collapse into it. So we're trying to keep the shoulders level across. Get that elbow in against the inner side of the thigh. Curl it up. Nice and easy. Keep the wrist straight. If the wrist deviates from the straight position, if it is curling the hand in more, not going to do any harm. It's just going to take a little bit away from the strengthening aspect of the wrist when we're keeping it straight. If the knuckles are dropping downward, dropping back away from the forearm, that's the one that can not serve you well, let's put it that way. So you want to keep that wrist nice and straight and strong, and curl it up and down. That elbow is kind of poking right into the inner side of the thigh, just in from the knee. You'll notice that that can get a little bit tender. So make it comfortable. Just one more. And coming up to sitting. So watching the elbow position, because you don't want to be leaning downward. You can still do a bicep curl that way, no question about it. But you've taken away a lot of the possible benefit. Because with the elbow here, so for right now, we're just gonna put down that spare weight. We won't worry about that one right now. So shoulders are level across. You can let the arm hang or let it hang outside the opposite leg. Just bending the elbow, straightening the elbow. The distance between your feet just about enough to accommodate the length of the forearm. And what's happening, we're going to just quickly switch to the other hand to keep everything even. So, coming up to sitting, stopping to think of what is going on there. The fact that the elbow is against that knee, and the fact that there's going to be motion in that hand. What you've done is create a situation where, as you're working with that arm, you're creating some outward pressure on that leg. Therefore, you have to create an equal amount of inward pressure so that you don't just knock that knee out of the way. So, there's a lot more going on there than just a bicep curl. We're going to set the weights down just briefly because we need to get a little cardio here. And we're going to get the feet tapping. We're going to stay seated in order to do a little work with the triceps. So again, for the benefit of the cardiovascular system, or getting that circulation, getting that heart pumping, all we need to do is have quite a bit of motion going on. And in this case, we've got kind of a split thing, because the feet are moving quickly and the arms are moving a little bit more slowly. That's work for the brain. That's the coordination part of it. Just stretch those legs out, fairly easy. A slight bend at the knee, yeah, we're just resting the legs a little bit. So in order to get some work for the triceps, we can do Jay's favorite kickback. I'm going to reach down and get both weights. Feet almost together. Maybe not absolutely tight, but almost. If you lean forward from the hip, arms are straight. Now, bring those hands up. Keep the upper arm. We haven't straightened up. We're still leaned forward. Keep the upper arms. Elbows tucked in tight. Straighten the arms. And bend the arms. Neck is straight. Straighten. And bend. You're leaned forward at the hip. You're not bent over. You're not rounded over. So the fact that you're in this leaning forward position, you have a little bit of stretch over the back of the hip, not a lot. We're just bending those arms in, straightening the elbows, keeping the upper arms tight against the rib cage. This is one way to do a tricep kickback. Nice and easy. Just a very slow, rhythmic pattern. Make sure those elbows go to fully straightened. Make sure the upper arms don't pull away from your sides. Straighten up and bring those weights down just kind of onto your knees. So keeping in mind that those triceps were working harder because of the weight involved. Just straighten and bend that one arm. They had to work a little harder because of the weight that was involved. They had to work a little harder because we were leaned forward. But because all they were doing was straightening the elbow, they were working in exactly the same way, just not at the same weight or not at the same resistance. We need some work for the legs. I think we're gonna just tuck those weights under the chair. Actually, kind of nice to get a good little stretch here. So if you bring the knee up, put the hands around the front of the shin, not to tighten, not to clamp the knee, but to bring it a little bit higher than what it would come without that assistance. And because this is a pretty good stretch, we're going to hold it always for several counts. And then set that foot down. We're going to do the same with the other leg. So, you know, that knee is going to come up a certain amount without much encouragement. It's going to come up a little bit more with the encouragement. And that's going to be a stretch right over the base of the hip. And setting it down. Just relax the legs. Just all you need to do, just sit nice and firmly. So again, you know, a little bit of side turn on this, certainly not going to do any harm. It's just not going to add the amount of help for the torso that's possible if you're holding nice and solid. So, not always the moving part that matters. Sometimes the non-moving part is getting even a better workout. And in this case, you know, just trying to sit very solid, not have any turn in the core, you know, no real movement, hip to shoulder. Getting those stabilizing muscles, everything that girdles the entire torso. Getting some good strength work for them, especially if you're sitting up nice and straight. Okay, we're just going to take one foot out to the side, then the other. We're going probably say a 45-degree angle forward, outward. Just a nice reach. So here again, keeping the torso, keeping the core pretty solid. Obviously, with that stretch out, which is about as far as the leg and foot will go, there's going to be a tendency to turn toward it a little bit. If you resist that tendency, then you're getting that extra work for the torso. So that's what we're aiming for, to get the very most we can out of every bit of exertion that we put out. Just take both feet out. You're pretty close to the front of the chair seat. Relax the back, bring the hands down. They only need to come down as far as the heel of the hand, just over the curve of the knee. Neck is straight, back is relaxed, but it's held straight. And that just gives you a nice stretch over the back of the hip, into the back of the legs. Come on up to sitting. Pull the feet in, slide them forward. Pull them in, slide them forward. That's probably with feet together, only because of the fact that that, you know, gets a nice, gentle motion with the legs. You can let the fingertips just kind of ride along on the knee. So, pretty easy to do. Then you stop and think, okay, that's work for the legs, that's work for the hips, that's work for the back, that's pretty much work for the entire body. So, and certainly, if you're working at home and you're working on a carpeted floor, that's going to be more difficult to do. So, with some type of resilient flooring, you're going to be able to slide the feet. If you're working at home on a carpet, do one leg at a time. You're going to get a very similar benefit. It's just not going to be, it's not going to be quite as tough. So, we need to stand up, we need to stretch out. And again, make sure that nothing is in your way. You're Just bring one arm up to the top. Take it out and down. Up to the top. Out and down. One more each arm. Up. And up. If you bring the arm forward and up, straight elbow, really reach, and then relax the arm, bring it down. Same thing opposite. Really good reach. And bring it down. Put the weight almost all on that one foot. Bring the arm up and over, glance down toward your other foot, and come back to standing straight. That's a nice stretch. It's a good reach. And it's also a little test on balance because you put your weight almost all onto that one side. You're reaching toward the opposite side. You're tilting your head a little bit. So just enough so that you can look down toward that foot. And up once more each side. So the weight is on this foot. That arm comes up and over. If possible, you want it just above the side of your head. Take it down. Same thing opposite side. Looking down toward that foot. Bring the arm up and over. Nice big stretch. Can you get a good side bend without having the arm raised above the side of your head? Absolutely. All that does with the arm kind of almost lying along the side of your head, what that does is to give you a little more stretch. And it requires the shoulder work to keep that arm raised. So either way, you're going to get a nice bend, you're going to get a nice stretch. It's just that, again, if you want to get the most out of it, we're going to do the form, if possible, that will give you the most benefit, and we're going to get a nice big stretch here. And we're probably going to give everybody a pat on the back and say thank you for being in class. See you Thursday.